so that one policy can be disclosed and can be open only if this precondition is satisfied. Regarding instead, and we also introduced this notion of policy context, which I just mentioned here, which is used to express privacy policy, better to attach privacy policy to disclosure policy, and we are to associate policy precondition and to convey some other information which might be used to speed up the process. Regarding instead the credential, we reorganize the structure of the credential, since every credential beyond the specific content and the specific type, it always collects some reference information about the credential related with the type, with the issuer, and the temporal validity. We pull up all this information in what we call an header, and we separate it from the actual content of the credential. And additionally, what we did is to apply some hashed functions on the credential content so that the actual content of the credential can be blinded. We compute the signature over the whole credential, the hashed credential, so that the credential header can be disclosed plain, and while the credential content can be left blinded at first release. And we have this notion of credential proof. For us, the credential proof is basically the disclosure of the header, leaving the whole content hidden. And having this kind of structure for a credential enables us to have new approaches for disclosing information during the credential. So we can either gradually disclose the credential, first the header and then the attributes during the credential exchange phase, or we can also immediately release the attributes as soon as they are involved in the process. And I'll go more into the detail of this aspect when I'll explain the strategies. So this is unreadable, I know that. So this is an example. I want just to give an example of an actual credential. So there are different parts. There is just to make it more clear. So we have the header, which collects the credential type, an ID, the reference of the issuers, the expiration date. Then we have the content. Here it is an example of a hidden content, so it's just an hash value. There's no hint about neither the name of the attributes nor the value. And then we have some fields for the signature. Okay, now going into the detail of the strategies, trust negotiations can be carried out according to several strategies, which are referred to as strategies. There are different definitions for strategies in trust negotiation literature. The understanding that we have of trust negotiation literature, of trust negotiation strategies, is just that it is an approach for a negotiation party to be adopted during the negotiation. The language tools that we have in trustees are the basis upon which a number of different strategies can be adopted to better trade off between different requirements like privacy or efficiency and so forth. So the trust negotiation strategies that we have are listed here, and a few words on each of them. The standard strategies basically reflects the first sketch that I gave about the protocol of the negotiation. So first we have this introductory phase, a policy evaluation phase, and finally the credential exchange phase, where the credentials involved in the policy evaluation phase are exchanged. The suspicious strategies instead makes use of the credential schema that we have devised. So the idea is to disclose the credential header as soon as the credential is involved in the trust negotiation process, which means that during the policy evaluation phase, I already disclose the header, and then the content of the credential is actually revealed during the credential exchange phase. A strongly suspicious strategy is instead a specific case of the suspicious strategies where the attributes are actually disclosed immediately, or better, as soon as they are involved in the process and their policy is satisfied, which means that during the policy evaluation phase, as soon as an attribute can be released because its policy is satisfied, then it's released to the counterpart. The trusting strategies is instead a strategy characterized by having one of the two parties suggesting some policies to be some following messages around, so that some of the negotiation round can be skipped. And finally, a mixed strategies. A mixed strategy is basically a combination of the above strategies mixed that can be used during the same negotiation, and the same party can switch from one strategy to another during the negotiation process. So we have implemented and tested all these strategies for evaluating the correctness and measuring the computational complexity of each of them. And here, just a sketch of the test cases that we considered. We have some cases for evaluated the upfront disclosure of the credential proof, and other cases have been considered instead for testing specific features of the language and of the system. So, for instance, to consider whether with the cases when policies are recursive, which means that one policy calls another, and to test other specific features of the language, like terms of attribute condition of a specific format and so forth. So these are the main results that we got. And as expected, the suspicious and the strongly suspicious strategies are the one on the top of the graph, the purple and the yellow one, and they are the most expensive in terms of time, because there are although with both these strategies, the credential exchange phase is very short. The policy evaluation phase requires a number of additional checks and operations to be performed, and the overall time is greater than if we execute the negotiation with the standard strategies. The standard strategy is the blue one, and this is one of the shortest. But the shortest is the trusting, and I didn't really go into the detail of the trusting strategy because it's not really related with the privacy. It's just a way to model the negotiation in case one of the two parties is, for instance, a server, and they can somehow drive the negotiation. And if one of the party can drive the negotiation and can speed up the negotiation, of course, the overall time for the process is shorter. So the other solution that I mentioned earlier for dealing with privacy was about the introduction of P3P privacy policy in trust key negotiations. So what we did was the following: having the basic trust negotiation protocol, and this is the same slide as I showed earlier, so the same flow, introductory, policy evaluation, and certificate exchange phase. We added during the introductory phase, we added this privacy agreement subphase with the aim of reaching a first agreement on the privacy practices that the parties will have during the policy evaluation phase and the certificate exchange phase. And it actually consists of exchanging very coarse-grained privacy policy, just stating how the next information to be disclosed will be managed and collected. And in case some specific privacy policies have to be applied, we also give the possibility of give the parties the possibility of attaching specific privacy policies to some of the exchanged policy. So if there is a credential which actually requires some specific privacy practices, for instance, related with the collection of the data or the retention, then we can attach some specific privacy policy. So the privacy enabled